Hello, welcome to the new, brand spanking new, at least if you're listening to it while it's the newest one on our list, episode of Dakota Boys Talk Movies. We have a super show planned for you, pun intended. It'll be a steely-eyed, manly episode of epic proportions.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of build-up for what we're talking about, so hopefully you agree. But on this episode, we will be, as part of our retrospective we're doing of the Batman and Superman movies leading up to Batman v Superman,
which is coming out in around a month, actually.
Yeah, less than a month here. So, yeah.
It's the final countdown.
We'll be doing Man of Steel tonight. The movie that kicked off the DC Cinematic Universe, the DCCU. Rolls right off the tongue. And then what do they call their TV ones? The DCEU or something?
Yeah.
Extended Universe or something?
Yeah, those, although...
And then they keep trying to tease like they're going to matter but in the movies, but nobody seems to think they are. But Marvel's kind of done the same thing. They're like, they've made Daredevil and Jessica Jones be in the same universe as the Avengers, and yet they're like acting like, yeah, we did that for I don't know what reason because we don't want them in our movies. So I don't know what they're planning on doing here.
Yeah, Daredevil gets absolutely no love, even though that show was pretty awesome. I actually never finished Jessica Jones. Did you?
Me? No.
Oh, I gave up on it and never really committed again.
No. Daredevil, though, yeah, that was a really good first season. They got a second one coming up. But that's Marvel. We're talking DC tonight. We're talking... Man of Steel, this was, like I said, this came out in 2013. This was not Zack Snyder's first comic book movie. He had dabbled in a few others in the past. He had done, which one did he do first? 300.
Yep, 300 was the first one. And
then he did Watchmen, which were both kind of one-offs.
Yeah, standalone stories.
Standalone stories based on just kind of a standalone graphic novel. And a lot of mixed feelings. There's people who are absolutely in love with 300. There's people who thought it was way too 300-ish, which has become a term now, which basically means slow-mo CGI stabbing with slow-mo CGI blood spraying. And I don't know, a lot of people thought it was a little too much. And then kind of Watchmen got the same rap where people really purists to the novel thought it was too far off, and then there's people who thought he stayed too close to the novel with how he did shot-for-shot action scenes. And
yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize is that movie is really as good as you are ever going to get from a comic book.
Talking about Watchmen?
Yes. That so many directors came and went trying to adapt that thing.
It was called, like, unmakeable for a long time.
When Terry Gilliam can't think of a way to end the movie, you know something's wrong.
Yeah, when he's about as bizarre as they come.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Zack Snyder, like I said, this wasn't his first dabble in this, but he was kind of a mixed bag, and they gave him what they were hoping would be a successful reboot to Man of Steel. So, needless to say, a lot of people were like, I don't know, we'll see here. And in fact, even when the movie was over, there was a lot of people going, I guess it worked. But what we're going to do tonight is just kind of give some of our thoughts on that particular movie. So yeah, Dakota, why don't you go ahead and start just going into Man of Steel. What do you think of it?
All right. I actually thought this movie was pretty good. I think the one thing that is always kind of going against a Superman movie, even though a lot of people don't want to admit it, is Christopher Reeve's version of Superman. And the Richard Donner movie, and the second one, which he directed most of, but his name isn't on there as director.
Yep.
No matter who is making a Superman movie, they're always going to kind of come up against that. That Superman was just way too iconic. It'd be like if they tried remaking the first Star Wars movie. It's just, there's going to be
which some people would claim they did, but they didn't.
They kind of did. Anyway, where was I going? Oh, yes. So, the thing about this movie is not DC. Warner Brothers was actually looking for a new way to kind of bring soups into the now, and Christopher Nolan. They were actually trying to do this for a while now, and Christopher Nolan and David Goyer actually got together and started talking about a story, and that's how the scripts actually came about. And, once Christopher Nolan is involved with something, the die's been cast. There's no going back.
Yeah, he kind of gets what he wants.
Yeah, he made Warner Brothers a ton of money off his three Dark Knight, the Dark Knight
Inception.
trilogy. Yes. And is he producing Batman v Superman, or is he pretty much stepped out of?
That's a good question. To my knowledge, I thought he was.
Oh,
but
I suppose we should look into that.
We should. That's a good. What's his production company's called? Like Sin? Isn't his that Sin Copy that you see at the beginning of those?
Yeah,
and that's true. Maybe he did pull out, but he did produce Man of Steel.
Yes,
because my understanding is he pitched kind of the idea of it, but didn't write it. Is that?
Yeah, and apparently a lot of people at Warner Brothers were trying to get him to direct, but he declined. I think it had something to do with the fact that he was coming off. I don't know if he was
Interstellar.
Yeah, he was getting ready to do Interstellar, prepping to do Interstellar, and then you got to remember at the time he had just finished the Dark Knight trilogy.
He's not Batman v Superman.
Oh, okay.
I guess he's not involved anymore. But now it's coming back to me where I think they just asked him to stay on to kickstart this kind of stuff here. So
and yeah, honestly, I'm kind of glad Christopher Nolan didn't direct Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Mostly because I think he would have made it a little too dark. The movie is dark already.
Like literally, it's a dark shaded movie. Even, yeah.
Yeah, but
a lot of people call Zack Snyder kind of, what do they call him, an emo director.
Yeah,
all his stuff kind of has a real dark to it, with sometimes gritty for the sake of gritty. It feels like, and I don't know. Whoops.
He took some heat for the way the Kryptonian costumes were designed, because in the comics they actually wear pretty colorful clothes, almost like their robes. But
which is what Donner kind of did in the first one, where they're like, he had them kind of be like reflective, glowing lights or something.
Yeah, but in this they're wearing dark colors or very, very drab colors.
Very mute, yeah.
And then the military is wearing like armor for some reason, and Jor-El's wearing armor for some reason.
They're just ready to fight, apparently. Yeah, Jor-El's a scientist, and he's ready to like beat somebody down, I guess.
They didn't go into it, but apparently one of Zack Snyder's or David Goyer's ideas was that in this universe, the Kryptonians are a military society. Like, most of the populace has served in the military, which is odd, because why would this one species need a military this huge?
Yeah, they kind of led you to believe that they jump around the galaxy taking over planets or something.
Yeah.
And the problem I have with that is it makes you not really like them, which I feel like you're supposed to be okay with Krypton a little bit, because I feel like that kind of took away me liking Jor-El a little bit, because it's like he didn't seem to have any problem with the way Krypton was in that aspect. He just had a problem with the fact that they didn't care that their planet was going to end. And so it kind of made me feel like, well, should I like him, or is he kind of a D-bag? Because, they're stomping around and doing what, taking over planets from other aliens? I don't know. It feels kind of weird.
Yeah, one thing, as I was watching this movie, we're getting off topic here, but I just want to throw this in. They go into these outposts being in other worlds. I think it would have been cool if they showed them kind of interacting with other species in the DC universe, like the Hawk people.
Yeah. Well, and that's where there was this really, wasn't even actually an idea that was going to happen, but they should have ran with it when people cared about it. But after this movie came out, Russell Crowe said, oh, it'd be cool if they did like kind of a TV series of Krypton, and and everybody's like, yeah, they should do a show called Krypton, and I was thinking the same thing, like, oh, you could kind of play around with this space realm of around, like kind of pre-Krypton blowing up type thing, but yeah.
Yeah. Or one thing I thought would have been cool is the reason why they have this massive military is they're just afraid of the Green Lantern Corps coming.
Yeah, they're just afraid of the Corps.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah, be a good way to tie in the Green Lantern too.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah. But yeah, back to Man of Steel. So Man of Steel, like we said, is they're basically this was a reboot. This was to bring Man of Steel into a new generation / possibly kick off some Justice League stuff, which of course now we know it is, since the next movie is called Dawn of Justice as the subtitle. But yeah, this movie it's similar to the original, where it starts on Krypton. You see the parents' reasoning for sending off their son, but then it doesn't linger in Clark's childhood and teenage years as much as the old one does. Like, the old one spends time with him as a child, and then in high school, well, the high school especially, for a while.
Yeah, when you see him, he is actually a fully grown man.
Whereas in this one, they just touch on the spots when he starts realizing he has powers, and him kind of dealing with that, and, like, his parents kind of helping him understand what to do with him. That was the other thing I kind of struggle with this new Superman, is the way his parents are about him. Like, Kevin Costner plays his dad, his Earth dad, and
Pa Kent,
yeah. The way he kind of talks to Clark about it, like, you always kind of picture him as the one who kind of helps Clark be a good person, and his dad just kind of like, help people or don't, it doesn't matter, it's not on you, kind of thing. And like, he does it like that and just feels kind of like, I don't know, kind of nihilistic or something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, that was just kind of weird that they had Pa Kent do that, whereas Pa Kent has always been kind of like Clark's moral compass a little bit on Earth, like planting good and justice into his son a little bit, I mean, beyond what eventually Jor-El would do in the Fortress of Solitude. And so I just thought that was kind of strange they had him. So, and then even, is that in the preview for the new one coming out here, where they have Ma Kent now?
Yeah.
Say something like, you don't need to help them, it's not on you, or something. And it's like, why do they keep having his parents be so like, you don't have to, why are they so like ambiguous about their son? I don't know. Do they think it's like a way to protect him, but also they don't want to hinder him? Or what is the reasoning, do you think?
Yeah, it's very, I don't know, just back and forth with them. I mean, the reason Pa Kent dies in the first one is he doesn't want Clark showing off his powers to anybody. He'd rather Clark just...
And come on, saving a dog.
Stay
under
the... Yeah, apparently dying of a heart attack wasn't a good way to go.
Not cool anymore.
You have to be killed by a tornado because you live in Kansas.
He had to be sucked up a tornado. Yeah.
His
dad can't fly. His dad did fly for a little bit. Oh, gal.
Yeah, that was kind of sad. But anyway, kind of back to the whole story. For some reason, he decides to be like a Clark Kent, a.k.a. Kal-El, decides to be a migrant worker, and he just goes around working these odd jobs till he has to save somebody. And then once he saves somebody, apparently somebody, I don't know, maybe David Goyer was a huge fan of the Incredible Hulk TV show, where he just walked around helping people.
Yeah, it's like the Bill Bixby show, where it's like, he kind of wanders town to town with a backpack and works places until he has to help some waitress or somebody else or oil riggers.
Destroy someone's livelihood.
Yeah, and then he leaves.
I thought one thing that was interesting, I think we talked about this, there's a scene where after he saves the oil rig, he's just floating in the water and these whales come up to him. I thought that would have been a great scene to have Aquaman just swim by for some reason. Like, hey, you all right? Okay, good. Later, man.
Just like how they fit Bruce Wayne into the events of Man of Steel. When they introduce Aquaman, they're going to go back to that whale part and have Aquaman actually be swimming by. We just don't know it yet. Just like we didn't know Bruce Wayne was in Metropolis.
Or like he sends the whales to check if Clark's okay.
He sends the whales like somehow he knew Clark Kent was who he was. But
I have a feeling that's where that's leading. I'll put money on that.
Oh, you never know. They're desperate to connect all this stuff. So
yeah.
Yeah. So the other interesting thing involving the Kryptonian end of this is that part of what we see on Krypton is Clark's dad protecting the Kryptonian race with something called the Codex, which, Dakota, is my understanding correct, where the Codex is basically all the DNA of the Kryptonians is in it?
Yes.
And Clark's dad puts it into Clark, where Clark basically is now the Codex.
Yeah, he somehow fuses it into his DNA. This thing it's kind of hard to explain what it is. The idea is like these Kryptonians are so advanced, they created this cool piece of technology that looks like a skull.
Yeah, they make it like a skull and they grow their babies underwater. And
yeah, and then they I don't know what's the word, they create their babies in this birthing matrix.
And the reason they have to do that is because they're sterile now.
Yeah, the idea being that they've been cloned so many times. They can't reproduce because Jor-El's Jor-El. He finds a way to make his wife pregnant, and they give birth to...
Yeah, it's like he's not only is Kal-El the last son of Krypton, but he's also like... He was like the first natural-born one in a while, but then also he was the last natural-born one. And so it was just kind of interesting how that played out like that.
I think where they got the idea for that is when DC completely rebooted its entire continuity, which they seem to be doing more and more these days.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, the Superman comic was, instead of being called Superman, was turned to Man of Steel. And in the first few issues, it dealt with what life was like on Krypton. And that's kind of what the Kryptonians did. They had stopped having natural births, and they were cloning their children pretty much.
Okay.
They take the DNA from the dad, the mom, grow it in this chamber, then they give it to the parents and be like, there you go.
The stork brings it.
Yeah. And Jor-El in that comic kind of felt that, the Kryptonians weren't like a real race anymore, that they had lost something. And that's why he decided to have his child with his wife naturally.
Okay.
And of course, just like in that story, like in this one, he sends him off so at least part of his race can survive. Of course, he makes it to Earth, has all these adventures. Krypto shows up, which I always thought was a shame he's never showed up in any of the movies.
Yeah, I don't know. He could now, yeah. I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I guess what's interesting is that they have kind of... He's not like necessarily the biggest Superman villain, but he's one that everybody kind of knows. They have Zod end up being kind of the villain that shows up, and what happens is he's like... They make him kind of a... Well, like you said, it's a militaristic-driven culture, and he's like the creme de la creme of the Kryptonian military, really. And he kind of gets banished before everything goes to crap.
Yeah, to the Phantom Zone.
Yeah, to the Phantom Zone, and that's kind of the deal. Is that now, he's kind of bouncing around the galaxy with the few others that were with him, and they end up at Earth now as Clark's an adult and coming to terms with being who he is, a superhero type man, Superman. And Zod's trying to find him because he's still trying to get his hands on
the Codex
and things like this, and so it kind of all comes full circle with that. Of course, in the meantime, we have Lois Lane come into the story where she ends up seeing this man she's out investigating this ship that's found in the ice, which it's Kryptonian, and she runs into Clark in this scenario here, and that's how we get kind of Lois Lane in the story here. And so it just kind of ends up, everything's kind of flows through like this. Now, how did you feel about Amy Adams as the role of Lois Lane?
I thought she did pretty good, and I remember finding out after I'd seen the movie that she had actually tried out for Lois Lane 3 different times, and
really?
this time apparently third time's a charm because this time she got it.
She was actually in an episode of Smallville too.
Yeah, she apparently she auditioned for Lois Lane back when Superman Returns was getting made. She lost out to Kate Bosworth, although I think she dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, she probably did end up dodging a bullet.
And there was another Superman movie that was getting made that she auditioned for, but I can't remember. There have been so many I can't keep them straight someday.
Would it have been George Miller's Justice League?
Maybe. Yeah, because that wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, because that would have been like the 2007 time period. But, yeah, and then, of course, how do you feel about Henry Cavill, well, specifically in this movie, but then now carrying on the gauntlet of Superman?
Oh, that's kind of a slippery slope. I mean, as Superman, I thought he did okay. He wasn't that much of a standout, though.
Yeah, like I think he's a good guy, and I'm kind of wondering if he could be a better Superman, but he hasn't been challenged. And I'm wondering if Ben Affleck could be the key to maybe helping him be challenged in his game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because, like, Affleck has come a long way since Pearl Harbor, and in terms of, just kind of the presence he brings, the acting he can do, to whereas I feel like that could be the right thing to maybe bring out a better performance in Henry Cavill, because I think he has like the presence and the look and things like that down, but it just feels like certain ways he holds himself and says stuff is like it's like, you're not Batman. Why are you so? It feels like he's so brooding.
Yeah, he has a kind of a stern look on his face sometimes.
But then when I see some of these previews for Batman vs Superman, it's like he still seems like he's really brooding and angry. But I don't know. Maybe that's
he also looks really stacked.
What does that mean?
He's cut, like very cut.
Gotcha. But I feel like maybe that could be a misleading thing in the trailer with how angry he is for a number of reasons. One of those theories being like, maybe in some of those shots in the trailer we're not seeing Superman as we know him.
I mean, like I said earlier, no matter who plays Superman, they're always going to be living under the shadow of Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, who kind of was the total package.
Yes, he was.
He was able to kind of pull off the charm of Superman, and at the same time you believed his strength.
Yeah.
And then when he was Clark, he's the only one that's played Superman where I feel like he actually seems like a different person. Everyone else seems like, how can they not tell that Christopher Reeve is the only one I feel like that could kind of pull off the secret identity, of Clark Kent too. That's just my opinion, but
yeah. Well, apparently I can't talk. Okay. One thing that kind of gets to me is I don't think they're trying to do that, where they're trying to separate Clark and Superman. It just looks like he puts on glasses and regular work clothes, and that's it. It's like, how is this dude fooling people?
You mean like Henry Cavill?
Yes. Superman.
At the end of Man of Steel, this isn't really a spoiler because we all know he stays Superman and doesn't die, obviously. Yeah, they have him kind of don the glasses and stuff, and it's like, I don't know.
Which he puts on as he is literally walking in the building.
Yeah, and I think that was just a theatrical flair, but it was still kind of like, okay. But yeah, and that's kind of the thing with Man of Steel. For every strength, there's a weakness. To which where you kind of give it like a, it was fun to see Superman back on the screen, and yet it was flawed, Yeah. But what I feel like what Man of Steel did an excellent job with is flight.
Yes.
Like, you feel his flight, and then there's some fight scenes where they're kind of like grabbing him as he's coming up off the ground. It just feels like he's always trying to, instead of just like going, like having him just kind of stand there and fight and then maybe go into a flight mode. He kind of is like in the midst of the fight of someone as they're grabbing his leg, he's flying. I don't know, you just feel like he's capable of flight at any second, and he kind of is. And I feel like they did that really well in this movie. And then, of course, the fact that he had a formidable opponent in Zod in this movie, because Zod would have the same effects from the yellow sun that Superman would, to where they could fight each other. But that could bring us into our qualms here. A lot of people have this movie is the fact that Superman is just obliterating downtown Metropolis.
Yeah. Which Zach's...
And are we supposed to assume part of that is that he's kind of a young, new Superman and he isn't really thinking about the fact that he could be causing a body count or what?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult. Zack Snyder keeps harkening back to the comics where when Superman would get into these fights, they would literally just destroy buildings. And the problem is that works in comic form, and it looks pretty cool in comic form, but in real life, there's people in those buildings.
Yeah, and they're showing us the people like running from dodging skyscrapers. We're watching Lawrence Fishburne, who plays Perry White, just like trying to keep his secretary and another reporter from dying at every minute, and it's just like another reminder that he's just like just destroy. And you could argue like, well, he's fighting Zod, and Zod is flying through there or whatever, but I don't know. This feels kind of. So, but yeah, but of course, then they're using that battle there to link Bruce Wayne. The only Bruce Wayne tie we knew of in Man of Steel before Batman vs Superman was when they go up into space. Isn't there like a satellite that has the Wayne symbol on it?
They destroy the Wayne Industries satellite, and
you kind of think, and I remember thinking like, man, is that really what's going to tip off Batman and tick him off at Superman? But then you realize it's bigger than that, because in these new trailers we see they harken back to this fight, and Bruce Wayne was in Metropolis, seeing this man who is more powerful than he thinks anyone on Earth should be. So Batman feels the need to stop him.
There is actually a definite nod to Batman in the movie, though, because when the General Zod character starts using his heat vision, he actually brings down this whole building. And there's this one shot, like if you blink, you will miss it, of a yellow poster that has the words "Keep calm and call Batman" on it.
What? No way. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it took me a while to find it, but I found it.
Keep calm and call Batman.
Yes.
That also just reminds you how long that keep calm thing has been around.
It's been around before that, I think. But yeah, it was, there was that. There were some other kind of nods to other DC Comics characters. You see LexCorp everywhere in Metropolis. That's the company that Lex Luthor owns. You see a building that has, I can't remember what it's called. I'll have to look into that one. I'll get back to you on that one. But there is a nod to Booster Gold in that movie of all characters. Yes.
If you don't know who Booster Gold is, you should look him up, because he's a pretty entertaining character to learn about.
Yes. But they kind of, I don't know, I feel like they kind of, I don't know, they kind of picked odd people to reference in this movie. We may or may not have seen the Carol Ferris that is the love interest for Hal Jordan, Green Lantern. You do meet this woman who's in the Air Force. Her name's Carrie Ferris. There's a lot of people debating if that's supposed to be the Carol Ferris, though. She was played by Blake Lively in the Green Lantern movie.
Is that the one in Man of Steel that calls Superman hot?
Yes. Yes, it is.
That's a really random moment.
I know.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, that's kind of what we're talking about, but I feel like Batman v Superman is kind of, in a way, supposed to be the Days of Future Past to X-Men 3, where they're going to attempt to use Batman v Superman to clear up some of the muddled problems we saw with Man of Steel a little bit, although not to the point of like time traveling where it didn't happen, but just be like, see, this did have a purpose, or see, this is why it was like that, or see, if that wouldn't happen, this wouldn't happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do that a little bit and play with it, which is fine. I mean, the most important thing is that they just can give us a cohesive story that's entertaining and cool, you know. So hopefully they can still do that. But I think in terms of Man of Steel, as we talked about, it's definitely a very watchable, entertaining movie. It just has its flaws, you know. Not every movie's gonna be perfect. My one worry I come to, the one easy thing to point out with it, is I just don't like or trust Zack Snyder very much. He's never really done anything that I've just considered like absolutely outstanding. And I don't like the fact that he seems to be continuing to do these movies. Like, isn't he supposed to do the Justice League now too? After this?
Yes.
Which I just don't know why they just keep going with him movie after movie.
You know, he is actually a very I like most of his work. The only one I really didn't like was, what was it? The one he did a few years ago that got a lot of crap because of all the...
Sucker Punch?
Yes.
Did you like Guardians of Ga'Hoole? His family film?
It was okay.
It looked cool.
But Dawn of the Dead, I mean, that's a classic right there. You're gonna have trouble.
He's talking about the 2004 one.
You're gonna have trouble adapting what some people think is the ultimate zombie movie, and it was pretty entertaining. The director's cut of that one was probably more creepy than the actual movie. 300 for a movie that was made for a lot, raked in all this money, and that's pretty entertaining. Even though it's just saturated with crappy CGI by our standards today, but yeah, Watchmen I really loved, especially that the opening scene of the movie I thought was pretty awesome. That kind of gives you the history of the Watchmen universe, accompanied by Bob Dylan's "The Times They Are A-Changin'."
Good song.
Yeah.
I guess here's my thing is, like, he's getting to a point here where he has some really easy characters to do interesting stuff with, and I think it's really going to reveal how capable he is. Because it's like, Joel Schumacher proved that he's not a very good director, because he had one of the most interesting superheroes there was, and he just poo-pooed all over it, you know. And so I think time's gonna tell here. I just wish I could have more faith in Zack Snyder than I do, because all his movies I just feel like leave a bad taste in my mouth by the time they're over, even if I find redeeming qualities in them. But yeah, well, why don't we'll wrap up this Man of Steel kind of talk here. Dakota, final thoughts on Man of Steel and maybe what you're looking forward to of things that could be coming here.
Well, overall, I think the movie's pretty good. If the couple things that bother me are, I don't know, the kind of documentary film style that Zack Snyder was going for. I didn't appreciate at all. he kept trying to throw lens flares in there too.
Yes, he did.
Which also that irritates the crap out of me when directors try it.
Everybody loves lens flares.
Yeah. Yeah. But well, there was that. I loved Michael Shannon's General Zod. I was very disappointed, though, he didn't say kneel before Zod at any point in time.
He didn't
in this
even,
movie.
come on. I bet there had to be a take they didn't use in one of those shots where Michael Shannon just said it to say it.
Yeah. We pretty much saw Non and Ursa from the original Superman movies, except they weren't called Non or Ursa.
Yeah.
One was a big, giant dude.
I was going to say, Non never showed his face.
The guy was actually pretty ugly. Trust me, I've seen him. That was odd, though. It's like, why didn't you just call them that? Because that's clearly who they are.
It's obviously what they are. Yeah.
There's even a scene in Smallville where the town gets destroyed, kind of like in Superman 2, where that small town gets trashed.
Yeah.
When the army tries stopping them. But yeah, I can't really. The little Lex Luthor teases I thought were pretty cool. These guys,
there were some Luthor Corps teases and stuff in the movie too. If you catch those, there was
Clark-
a truck they smashed.
And then they destroy a building and all this other stuff. And the scene where Zod rips off his armor to reveal his, I don't know what you call it, leotard underneath there, I thought was cool because if you look at his logo, it actually looks like a sickle. And it looks very much like Superman's logo from Red Sun. That's where he crash lands in Soviet Russia.
Yeah.
And becomes a communist.
He's a communist Superman.
Yeah. But I thought that was another little nod to the comics. And like I said, there's a couple things here that bothered me, but overall I thought it was pretty good. And of course, yes, Superman does kill somebody, and that's a little disheartening that he did that. I guess trying to knock out Zod was just too much of an effort.
So overall, I guess, what grade would you give it? We'll do letter grade on this episode.
Oh, letter grades, B+.
B+ from Dakota. And I guess my final thoughts on Man of Steel are a watchable movie with a lot of entertaining elements that is sadly a little too flawed in parts and lacking in just fun. And it's a character I feel like is easy to do fun with, and I feel like Zack Snyder just kind of sucked the fun out of it a little bit, which just does have me worried for the future. But that everything's just to be dark and brooding, and there'll never be very many fun elements, or they're going to be like really forced because nothing else is going to be fun except for when he tries to force a moment. So yeah, that has me worried. But Man of Steel, again, had a lot of things I liked. I think Cavill, he's okay. I'm hoping that he will get better here, maybe with the help of having more people around him in similar roles, aka I'm referring to other superheroes around him, maybe helping him and challenge him in some of that, because I'm thinking maybe that could be an issue. And so I guess with all that being said, I give Man of Steel C+. So it's just hard for me to give it a B, just because it's just, as Dakota brought up, it's really, really hard to not compare it to the Christopher Reeve one. No matter how hard you try, you just end up doing it because the flaws make you remember the fun of the Richard Donner movie, because he was just able to bring some kind of heart and fun into it with the help of Christopher Reeve, of course, in the role, which caused me to give it a C+. But I've become more and more optimistic toward Batman v Superman. Still a little skeptical it's going to be the cinematic greatness that I wish it could be. But yeah, time will tell. So I really hope that I'm proven wrong, because that would be awesome. That'd be really awesome to be proven wrong. So, but yeah, I think with that we'll wrap up tonight's episode. Remember to like us on Facebook to keep up on stuff. Subscribe to us in any way you listen to us, and shoot some feedback and reviews our way, because we love it. Let us know you're there. So yeah, this is Steven.
And this is Dakota.
We'll see you later. And remember, the red capes are coming. The red capes are coming.